And I'm going to ask that item 6A be removed from the agenda for tonight. And if that's acceptable to the commission, then I'm going to ask that we turn 6A back into the clerk so that she can give it back to us again and not waste paper. And that will save her some time. Does anyone else have anything to add or delete to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, with Mr. Yancey coming in remotely, if you would give me a second to review Article 9 of our bylaws to make sure we're complying with that.
Okay,
I would just like to make sure that we're doing that because there are a few state code provisions we need to comply with. Do we have a reason for Mr. Yancey's remote attendance?
Yes, sir. He was attending a board meeting at Durham College today and was not able to return it.
Okay. And Mr. Chairman, you reviewed that reason and you've determined it to be in compliance with our bylaws?
I determined that he could zoom in. I really didn't look at the bylaws, to be honest with you. I was expecting you to do that, Mr. Attorney.
Okay. Give me 1 minute and just let me make
All
sure.
right.
And while we're doing that, we can proceed with the rest of the meeting.
All right, so while he's trying to determine whether I made a great determination or not, would someone please give me a motion to approve the agenda with the amendment of taking off 6A?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with one alteration, and that is to eliminate item 6A work session.
Second.
that's been moved in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition, motion carries. So now we're at the March 3rd minutes approval.
And Mr. Chairman, I've reviewed Article 9 of our bylaws and I've determined that it does comply with our bylaws and with state law. So on that recommendation, I would just advise the chair that it may approve Mr. Yancey's remote attendance, but that determination has to be explicitly made by the chair.
All right, I have determined that he may appear remotely. And if he has anything to say, he's going to indicate to you, I'm assuming.
You should be able to hear him now. He's right there.
Oh, he's up, okay. And if you got anything to say, George, raise your hand. So I can see you. Okay, all right. And for those in the audience, because he's remote, he's gonna be on that monitor. Everything else is gonna be on the other monitors. So when he gets ready to speak, I'm gonna acknowledge him and then we can go forward if he has anything. All right, is there a motion to approve the minutes of the March 3rd meeting?
Mr. Chairman, I have two minor typos in the minutes.
Okay.
The first one would be under number 10, Commissioner comments. The third item under
All right,
Mr.
let's take them one at a time. Number 10.
Number 10, the third paragraph where it begins with you, Mr. Brooks advised he and et cetera, and it goes on to say with wild crossing, and I believe that should be wilderness crossing. And again, minor typo, does not impact the intent. And then the final one is my name has an E on it in the under item number 12, the adjournment. So just strike the E. It happens all the time, so no concern. But those two minor edits, I would move approval unless there's something else that someone else wants to bring up.
Any other concerns? Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved in second that we approve the minutes of March 3rd. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, motion carries unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, quick question.
Yes, sir.
There's a February copy of the February 3rd minutes. Is that?
It was for for our benefit because we did change something in there. Want you to see the changes. I already signed off on it. And you will get a copy of the March 3rd back in here again, showing those corrections, but it'll just be for informational purposes, nothing else. Just so you
Mr.
know.
Chairman, that actually will need to be voted on. I realize that the commission already adopted the minutes from February 3rd at its last meeting. But because it did so with changes, it will just need a new vote to confirm those changes in writing.
Okay, well, then just forget what I just said about the March 3rd one and know that, okay, we got to approve the February minutes again, because we had that slight change. Just for a second before we go there, Mr. Lansing, I was thought when you did typos and things, you didn't have to reapprove the minutes because it didn't change substance.
No, those need to be confirmed in writing. To the best of my understanding, if you know of a contrary rule, then I'm happy to be educated on it, but my understanding is that they need to be confirmed in writing. So
Okay.
I was the one who asked Tracy to put this back
Okay,
on the
okay.
agenda. for
So
approval.
I solicit a motion to approve those February meeting minutes.
Make a motion to approve as presented. I did check the change, by the way.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's removed and seconded. We approve those minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, I'm watching George's hand if anybody's wondering. If he puts it up for aye, and he's gonna shake his head for no. So that's how we're gonna do it. All right, now with all that housekeeping taken care of, let's move on our agenda here a little bit. So we're getting ready to move to public comment, which if anybody's here to comment on any of the public hearings, the two public hearings, the complete care and the solar activity, then don't come up doing public comment. Public comments or anything other than that. Has anybody signed up for public comment?
No, sir.
Okay. So that takes care of that. But for public comment and for public hearing, here's the ground rules. You come up, you state your name, your address, and any affiliation if you have one. You only get 3 minutes. Timers will be up on the wall there. At the end of 3 minutes, we ask you to stop. If you within 15, 20 seconds of your 3 minutes, we're not that hardcore. But if you within 7, 8 minutes of your 3 minutes, we are that hardcore. That's just kind of where it goes. We don't want to be rude, but we're not going to just let it go wherever either. So you come up, you state your name, your address, your affiliation, if you have any for any group, and we'll call you up one by one. After the applicant and the county make the presentations in both public hearings, then we will open up to the public comment, and then we will go forward from there. Okay? The commission will not answer back to you. The commission will not acknowledge anything other than calling you up, letting you go forward. You may ask a question, we might not answer it. We ask the applicants, don't get into a match with anybody in the audience also. Everybody direct all that information this way. Okay? Ground rules set. Commissioners, did I miss anything? All right. So our first public hearing tonight is rezoning of 2201. Complete Care Virginia has applied to rezone the property at 23-325 Village Road, Unionville, Virginia, to amend the C2 conditions limiting the property use. The property is identified as tax map parcel 32, that's 65, and 32, that's 65A, contains 4.23 acres and is the recommended future land use village, recommended future land use village category as described in Orange County Comprehensive Plan. We're going to ask that the county would come and go forward, and then we would ask that the applicant come, and then after the applicant comes, I would ask that I have my sign-up sheet.
Mr. Chairman, Planner Kira Davis will be presenting this matter.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to state for the record that my name is Kira Davis, and I am presenting the staff recommendations for Orange County Planning Services. The applicant is Mr. David Perks, is the owner of Complete Care of Virginia. I have here an aerial overview of the subject property. And it is denoting the current structures on the property consisting of the main structure, carport, and barn, and giving a aerial depiction as well of the trees around the property, creating a buffer. Now to talk about the land use. In the comprehensive plan future land use map, the highlighted parcel in red is in the village category. Specifically, the village definition includes a concentration of residential development, as well as areas of commercial services for the residential and businesses in the area, and public services and facilities. Now with the zoning, this is a zoning vicinity map. Again, the parcel is highlighted in red. And here you can see that the surrounding properties are zoned R1, which is limited residential, as well as there is a section in the center of C1, which is limited commercial, that consists of 8 parcels. And on the outer skirts of that, there is C2, which is general commercial properties. Now, the current zoning conditions are from a 1997 rezoning, which the owner rezoned the property from R1 to C2 conditional. The current case before you is in reference to the current conditions on the property, which limit the property to only being an auction house and antique store, that all the merchandise sold must be acquired through different auctions, estate sales, and private purchases, and that merchandise typically used for the indoor purposes cannot be stored outside. This case is to rezone the property C2 conditional to C2 conditional in reference to the code of the Virginia ordinance, the Orange County ordinance in section 7193, which states that the amendments to accepted proffers must go through a additional rezoning application to be changed. The applicant is proposing to remove the current proffers and to add the following of a screening if a dumpster must be located on the property, as well as updating the security lighting to not be intrusive to the neighbors, as well as the keeping of household goods from being stored outside. For staff's recommendation, staff recommends approval of REZ 2201 with the proffered conditions. And I have below a favorable motion draft for you all. And do you guys have any questions?
I have one question.
Mhm.
Can you, when you were looking at this, or it may have been done pre, why C2 and not C1?
Because C1 would be dezoning the area, you would be taking it down from what it already is as C2.
Oh, part of, okay, well, we'll get into that later, but yeah, okay.
And so what's the problem with these zoning?
It's just a less common practice.
I think the proper term is down zoning.
Yes.
Which is a less restrictive zoning designation. I'm not familiar enough with the code to say that C1 is definitely less restrictive than C2, but as a general matter, you try not to make something more permissive if it's already more restrictive. And I think,
It's flipped.
You flip to
C2 is more permissive than C1.
I see.
Or
I don't know.
C2 or C1.
I would have to look it up. I
No,
was headed there right now.
Well, it seems as though that the reason I asked that, it seems as though that down zoning would have been an option that we didn't look at. He could have got everything he wanted down zone instead of what we're looking at. I mean, just curious, did we look at it? We didn't look at it that way, or,
We did look at that option, yes.
and
And it was determined with previous staff that this would be our course of action.
It's a very polite way to say it.
Okay. Any other questions?
And the applicant is also here to answer any questions if you have any for him as well.
He or she can come up and state their name if they want to. Is the applicant here? If you want to make comments or present your project or tell us why we should or should not approve it.
Sure, that's fine. My name's Dave Perks. We're 23325 Village Road, where we're talking about. And I am the owner of Complete Care, my wife and
Slow
I.
down with it, slow down with it.
Sure.
Your address, not the location of it, your address. Where you
Mine
physically live.
8112 Zachary Taylor Highway.
Okay, all right,
And that's in Unionville, of course.
okay.
And so we have water treatment business, my wife and I. And so we've been running that and doing filtration systems and things of that nature for industrial and commercial applications. And so when we saw that the building came up at 23325, it worked out perfect for us because it's more storage area, more capacity. We can put an office in there so we can have some place to be able to take and do our paperwork and things like that. So that's what we're looking to do. And then once we had purchased it, and then we found out that it had the restrictions of the auction house, and supposedly after talking to different county officials that, that had to be removed in order for us to do what we want to do as far as using for storage in an office. And I'm not sure the clarification of the differences or anything of that nature, but so, and that brings us to where we are today. They made some recommendations to meet the neighbors and talk to different people around town and stuff like that, which we've done those. Met with different people, including Mr. Yancey was one of the folks we met with. So told me to show up here tonight. So, here I am.
Any questions for the applicant?
I have some. I don't want to keep going first, though.
Hold on, let's-
Someone else.
Go ahead.
So this is just, is your current office, this isn't a trick question. I mean, are you working out of your current address now, or do you have
Yes.
another? Okay.
For the
So-
office wise, for warehouse wise, no.
You have a warehouse somewhere else?
Yeah, we've got a warehouse in Roanoke and a warehouse in Culpeper.
Okay, and you're gonna consolidate those?
No.
No, okay. So I'm a little familiar. I went to your website, checked out your business. I'm slightly familiar with commercial water treatment and cooling towers and all the like of that. How many employees do you have?
We have one full-time employee and two part-times.
Okay. And so you go out for the most part in what service, commercial chilled loops and heating loops? and that
Chilled
sort of-
loops, heating loops, air conditioning systems with water softeners, iron units, neutralizers,
Okay.
things of that nature. So
Do you have, do you plan on storing, are you gonna have vehicles parked there? Out in that parking lot to the right, do you plan on having a lot of trucks
no,
there
no,
or
no, no.
vehicles or?
no, our truck, we run service. So our trucks, the biggest truck we have is a one-ton van.
Okay,
So we don't have any dual wheels trucks or anything of that nature.
okay. And so your employees, what do they show up at your warehouse each morning?
Yeah, they
Pick
show
up
up
their
each
supplies.
morning, they pull the files, as they pull the files out and get the files for the day, because we
Right.
keep all individual customers on different files.
Right.
And so they pull out the files for the day, take off for the day, and they come back at the end of the day, put those files away.
Yep.
Electronically send out, we do electronic reporting, we send out electronic reports, and day's done.
Okay, and
So-
so,
So as far as like cars parked there or something like that, now, I mean, now will there be a car overnight or a truck overnight? Absolutely, it's like.
yeah. I was just curious if you planned on, is it gonna be multiple?
No.
Yeah. What time do they usually show up in the morning?
7:30 in the morning, and in the afternoon could be anything, anywhere from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock, depends on what's going on day.
So they use their own vehicles? for the
No,
most part?
they use my vehicles.
Okay, so your vehicles are parked there in the evening, they come with their personal vehicle, they pick up your vehicle, they get whatever supplies they need, they get their route and. off
Correct.
they go.
So
Yeah,
ultimately, there's a vehicle sitting there all day long.
Yeah, got it, okay. Let me just Do you plan on, so it's a pretty big property. I mean, what do you plan on storing outside? I mean, vehicles, do you plan on storing, I don't know, heating?
No, I
equipment?
didn't buy it for the property. I bought it for the inside capacity because the goods that we deal with are dry goods.
Uh-huh.
So it's more keep dry than anything else,
Okay,
so as far as storing vehicles there,
Yeah. But you don't anticipate like doing a cooling tower rehab and having
no.
like a bunch of,
no.
what are the, I don't know what those waffle.
When
things
we
are
do
called.
rehabs and things like that, we're not bringing it back. We do that at the customer's location.
Okay, and then, so you don't ever have to haul the trash away and
No.
store it somewhere?
No.
Okay.
Most of the trash is delivered to the customer. If the package are even delivered to the customers and the trash is left on site.
Okay. And as far as the chemicals and things, they're all indoors?
But we're not storing any chemicals there. That's the
Oh.
reason we're not moving the warehouse from Roanoke, because they store our chemicals and deliver from there.
I see.
So I don't have to deal with that.
So this is what, like a franchise?
Mhm.
Like, so they're your chemicals in Roanoke?
Yeah.
Okay. But you don't plan on moving them?
No,
Yeah.
absolutely not. And the biggest reason for that is because down there, we've got somebody that mans it. They're there all day long. They can unload trucks, they can load trucks. So we're not, I don't have to man a facility because that's taken care of.
Right, okay. You had mentioned in your site plan here that like one of the, what do you have, pole lights out there?
It's got a pole light at the entrance. It's been there for, I don't know, I've been in the area for 30 years and I can
Yeah.
remember it there that long ago.
Yeah, there, but you said there's one you're gonna turn off, right? I saw in the,
No, there was one, the one that's going to turn off has already been turned off.
Okay.
There was on the east side of the parking lot
facing the building to the
that's
right.
facing the building. Yeah, that's already been turned off.
Okay.
It was evidently some huge light that lit up the whole parking lot.
Yeah,
So, but
Okay.
that's already been turned off too. And I don't even know if they disconnected it. It's still in place, but I
yeah,
don't know how they did it. It's one of the service agreements with Dominion. Because
Right.
Dominion's a power company there. So I had to
Yeah.
call them and say, turn it off. I don't want it.
that's one of the things I was gonna ask you, if you would consider, because I think Dominion offers a new style of light. Like if you look at the lights here on this building, like if you come here at night, like it's all down. The
Okay.
Parking lot's bright as can be, but the
Mhm.
light doesn't, shine anywhere else. It's not like a
Okay.
glare. Where the old style lights, they probably light up the whole road, neighbors and everything else.
Oh, I'm
So,
sure, yeah.
so is that something you would consider, like potentially calling Dominion and
I'm
see if
not
they could?
opposed to it,
Yeah.
to seeing what they have to offer and look at it and see. I mean,
Yeah,
because I'm sure, nowadays, it's probably got something that's a lot more economical
They
as
do.
well.
Yeah.
So,
they really do. It's better for everyone. Yeah,
so,
yeah, okay. All right.
Jason, can I
So-
ask a follow-up to the lighting question? So you did proffer in your lot that any outside security lighting would point down or be what they call dark sky. So you're not shooting light up into the sky or, in so you're committed to do that as part of your proffer?
well.
I mean, if you change them out.
Yeah, I was gonna say if I change them out, and that's what that was put in there for, because I have no intentions of changing anything there. So it's just a matter of saying, and that was recommendations based on different meetings with different people in the county that had made that said, if you're gonna put a proffer in there and do lighting, it seems to be that, I don't know, it seems to be the hot ticket for the county for some reason, lighting.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, it's, something that we're
Yeah.
concerned about because light pollution, both for adjacent properties or just in general is
Right.
something we like the dark sky, what they call dark sky, which is a pointing down. So I referenced that. Secondly, you noted that you were going to take down the old sign out front and then most likely put a sign on your door, but not a sign out front. Is that what I understand? So you don't have any proposed signing out
No.
along the road? Okay,
No, we're not a retail establishment, so
Right.
we don't have customers coming in and out. Like say, we'll go in and get our truck, get our paperwork, and we're gone. We're not there during the day. So, to be like a retail establishment or something of that nature, then now we have to man it. So
Right.
that's extra cost, extra manpower and things of that nature. So that's why we chose that.
great.
And it logos, like we have basically it's a water drop logo and that, I was just looking to do something like that on the door.
Okay. You also indicated that you would keep the area clean of debris from being stored outside. Do you have plans to store anything outdoor other than the vehicle parked in the parking lot?
Not at this point, no. I mean, I've been working there for the last 4 months to clean up debris, so I'm not looking to create more work for me.
Okay.
So now, just that being said, I mean, if there's a table or chairs out front, something of that nature, then yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a warm atmosphere kind of thing, but not, old cars or not, I should say.
Or
old,
any equipment
non-working
or
cars.
anything associated with your business materials, none of that will be stored
No.
outside.
No.
And then my final question is, with respect to the dumpster, have you identified if you put a dumpster somewhere on the property where that will be?
No, because again, that was made recommendations by the county. I don't have any intention of putting in a dumpster.
Okay, so right now you don't have a plan to put one, but if you do, you would screen it.
Do something,
And
yes.
so you would not be able to see that dumpster during the daytime
Right,
from,
And
from
keep
from the road or from the adjacent property.
right. Keep it clean, keep it neat.
That's all I have.
I guess tailing on to that, what is the trash removal plan then?
Other than your daily trash that we've got sitting in our desk and stuff like that, we typically shred all of our stuff and just throw it in trash.
Okay.
So, but boxes and stuff like that, and debris of that nature, like say, it comes in a box to us, we put it on the truck, it goes to the customers, and typically, most of the places we have recycling facilities, so, they get thrown in different dumpsters and things, so that, or they get packers or crushers or whatever to pack them. So we don't have to even bring it back. So, makes it nice.
So what I'm hearing is that nobody's really gonna know you're there.
That's the plan.
Okay. Because
Because-
that's what I heard, that as long as they're not there making a whole lot of noise, so nobody's
Well-
really not gonna know you're there. It's not gonna really interfere with any of the tranquility of life on that little quaint village road, a half a mile from where I live.
Good. Okay, well, that's perfect, because we've been in there working since December, and I would like to think that we've been,
I say that humorously, but that's the only concern that was brought to me, that we would not lose the tranquility of that road that's there. And basically, if you only put 1 or 2 cars there, that's not going to change it one bit, from what I can see.
no. and I
Now,
can appreciate-
the other question I have is that everything that you stated here, such as you'll put a sign on the door and you're asking for these proffers, if we put these into contingent approval, you're acceptable to all that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so, and you know that you'll be limited to that,
In what respect?
just what you're saying, everything's inside, no trash outside, no sign on the door, down lighting,
No sign,
cover,
no sign on the
a
door?
little sign on the door.
Oh, okay, yeah.
A little
In
sign
other
on
words,
the
you
door.
couldn't put a sign out at the street just because you decided, well, I like it on the door, but not
Oh,
want to put it on. the
understand.
street.
Right,
Yeah,
right. I mean, so you wanted just a little hub to push things in, and what you want to note that this is what's here, so somebody doesn't think the building is vacant.
exactly. So as if somebody does come pick something up. or
Only
something
other thing I
like that.
got is what security measures you're gonna have there, because I can tell you, having done what I did for many years, just as soon as you put something there, there's somebody get enticed to go there. So what,
Mhm.
you have any alarm on the door or something to notify?
We haven't had any alarms, any doors, and, my mentality was the place has been sitting there for 2 years full of stuff, and nobody's once had broke a glass or window or anything.
A lot of that because of the value of what was inside. Trust me, people had peeped and looked and saw what was in there and decided,
Right.
okay, this is not gonna work. You're getting ready to put something valuable inside.
Well, I mean,
I don't know, I'm looking at your website like Mr. Capel did, and I'm not really for sure all the components you use, but I know one thing that's hot and heavy that they're stealing is, they're taking the copper off AC outdoor units. Every one they can snap and get, they go. Some, if you got copper or something like that inside, I'm not trying to expose you. You don't have to say if you do or don't. I'm telling you that if it's known, it's the cheese for the mouse. I'll
Understood,
just leave it at that.
understood. And like I said, with most of what we're.
Would you consider putting an alarm?
When you say alarm, I'm thinking something when it goes off, it's making a tremendous amount of noise.
Well,
Versus, doing maybe like cameras or something
we'll
like
do cameras.
that.
I don't care. You want the silent approach, that's fine. I just think that if you're gonna put something valuable in there, I'm trying to protect the neighborhood, because once the criminals start in the neighborhood, they come to other things in the neighborhood.
Mhm.
And that's just, somebody stopped by my house today and said that, so I'm passing on to you what they're passing on to me.
Okay. Well, I would hope.
If you have valuables inside,
Right.
there's a potential, so.
Right. And that's understood. I hear what you're saying. I mean, and it's like anything. I mean, you have valuables in your home as well. I mean, I have valuables in my
And I have
home,
alarm and cameras
but,
and a gun.
so,
So I got all those things.
so. And, and we've got cameras in our home as well and stuff like that. So, as I say, I'm not opposed to having cameras or something like that.
I don't know
But
that
as
we can
far
make
as-
you have it. I'm just wondering, would you have it just for the benefit of the folks around the neighborhood there? Any other questions? Carol, you have anything else based on what we asked? We do.
Mr. Chair, I have a couple of,
Yeah, question.
well, I have a couple of points of order, but they can wait until after Mr. Capel's questions.
No, I'd like to hear the public comments, and I have some questions for staff.
Who's raised his hand?
Mr.
Okay.
Yancey, have his
Yancey.
hand raised.
Yes,
Mr. Chairman, could I ask Mr. Perks one question? Mr. Perks, based on the conversations you and I had previously, your intentions are not to utilize any of the outside portions other than delivery and to load product out of the facility. Everything would be enclosed within the confines of the original building that is there for your utilization, correct?
Correct. Correct. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
here.
With, like I said, was on.
Nickel.
Okay. And then, that doesn't exclude, like chairs or table or something like that, that's more homey or warm or something like that. But as far as the equipment or, appliances and stuff like that, no, I don't have any intention at all of storing stuff like that outside.
That's all the questions I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair, if I could make those points of order.
Please.
The first is just a reminder that if the commission sees fit to add any conditions to those that are contained in the agenda packet, those additional conditions need to be in writing. It can be on a scrap paper, it can be in an email, so long as whatever that writing is viewable to the commissioners and ultimately winds up with our secretary, Tracy.
Okay, outside of what is already proposed to us, what you say.
Exactly.
Okay.
Other than what is in your agenda
Okay.
packet.
Okay.
The second point of order, just returning to Mr. Yancey's remote participation. Two things. First is we need Mr. Yancey's location. It doesn't need to be an exact address, a general description like my house or a hotel room can be sufficient, but some location for Mr. Yancey needs to be included. And then also, I just want to note for our minutes that this is a personal matter as opposed to a disability or medical condition. And for our secretary, we just need to note the nature of the personal matter cited by Mr. Yancey at the beginning. So with that said, we just need Mr. Yancey's location.
Mr. Yancey, tell me where you're at, please.
I'm located at 4216 Toddsbury Drive, Vinton, Virginia.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thanks.
Oh, you finish.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Is anyone else signed up for the Village Road other than what the two that I have here? So Carla Merkel, 11535 Marquis Road.
Yes, my name is Carla Merkel, and I live at 11535 Marquis Road, but I own property 23320 directly across the street from the new business. I'm all for small businesses. I own a small business. So I encourage all that. My concern with this project is not what he has said that he will do, and I take him at his word for how he plans to treat the property and how he plans to keep it. No problem with any of that. What I don't, or what I am concerned about is the fact that later on, if he sells that property, what it can become after that, or what he can still do, even if he owns it and decides to change his mind from being just a warehouse to now he might want to do something different. And if he doesn't have that written down in new proffers, I guess would be, I'm not real sure about the proper way to go, but new proffers written in his agreement, or just to add what he would like to do, just those 3 or 4 things to what's already there, leaving the zoning the same, leaving everything else the same, but adding the few things that he wants to do. In my opinion, that seems to be the simplest and the most direct way to get what he would like, but to also protect it in the way that it is now, or better it than it is now, but to keep it protected in the future so that other businesses can't come in and decide to change, and now they want to do a whole lot different than what he had intended. That's my concern.
Thank you. Then we have Barbara Parks also, Village Road. 23494 Village Road.
That's it. Thank you. First of all, I have a question. Before you said we only have 3 minutes to speak. Does that include the questions I have?
Well, we won't interchange with you. You can pose the questions and I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll write them down. If I think they're worthy, I'll just ask them when they come back, but we won't interchange with you.
Okay,
Okay?
so,
And I'll give you an extra minute for your questions, but no more.
And don't forget to say your name and address.
pardon me?
Don't forget to say your name and address.
Okay, my name is Barbara Parks. I'm at 23494 Village Road, lived there for 18 years. So we've seen some changes on Village Road. And I think for the most part, the changes have been for the good, but it's only because the neighbors have stepped up and expressed our concerns to the Planning and Zoning Commission. So I did send a letter in, but I understand that the letter does not become public unless I actually read it here. Is that correct?
I did forward all comments, written comments to you all.
We'll
via
receive
email.
your letter.
It doesn't go into the minutes
Right.
unless it's
So
read.
Is it important to do that?
Well, if you're gonna, I'm getting into your time. If you're gonna make a statement, and your statement is your letter, or it has the contents of your letter, then you're okay. If you're gonna make a statement outside of your letter, then I'm not necessarily saying I'm gonna take your statement and your letter too, because you're taking twice the time. So if you send a letter in, we already got it. Now make your comments.
Okay, so my comments are this. What happened to the residential property across the street from my house, our house, is that the Planning Commission said that they can keep the portion of the property facing Route 20 as a commercial property, but the back end of the property facing Village Road has to stay residential. And of course, it led to all kinds of issues within the neighborhood because those understanding when the proffers were originally granted were never upheld. So my concern is that if proffers are granted to this proposal, is the board going to uphold those proffers? And if he decides to sell the property or morph the property into a different type of business that's going to change the complexion of the area, are the proffers going to be upheld? That's my concern, because we spent a lot of money fighting to get Village Road the way it is now, stabilized into the residential area that it is. And don't want to have to go through that again.
Complete?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. It does not appear that anyone else has signed up for the Village Road rezoning 2201. Is there anybody in the audience that wants to speak that did not sign up? Public comment is closed. We'll start with Mr. Nickel. If you have questions of the county or the applicant, and then we'll just come right on down.
Give me a second.
Ms. Carroll, can you
Yeah.
come in for a second?
Okay.
You need her?
Actually, I was.
Okay, he needs you. Go ahead.
I was gonna make a sort of a question or comment in general, and that is, in the prior proffers or the conditions that were listed previously back in '97. So this was an auction house, right? This was
Correct, that was.
designed as an auction house and an antique store and I guess with an accessory restaurant of some sort. So it was that was a completely different, which is why if he wanted to come in and put up an auction house, an antique store, and an accessory restaurant, you could do that.
Correct, under the current proffers.
So he's proposing to delete those proffers and add new proffers. I think what's lacking here is sort of, because I think the proffers, first of all, I think what he's actually doing is a much less intrusive business. I mean, but, you know, if you were to actually run an auction house or not, it's much less intrusive. And so I don't see anything in the proffers that sort of say he's going to use it as a warehouse, as an office and a warehouse storage facility. I don't see that in the proffers, but am I missing something, I guess?
It's not explicitly stated in the proffers.
Okay, so to me, again, I'm not trying to tell you anybody what to do. Right, the past proffers said it was an auction house, and it seems to me it would be, and I think this would be what I'm hearing from the community, would be acceptable for you to say, I'm going to use this as an office and a warehouse storage facility. And, you know, and have occasional folks come, employees pick up things and then leave. And I think that would be a completely different use and a much more limited use. And I'm not telling you what to do, but if you're willing to maybe make that statement in one of your proffers, if you're going to use it as an office and a warehouse storage facility, I think that this would sort of be a much easier one for everybody to accept. So I'll just leave it at that. And I'm interested in other opinions. So I don't think it's fatal, by the way, in terms of what you said you're going to do with the proffers here. I think those are all appropriate. You're not going to store anything outside. That's going to be the same condition. I also think any lighting changes and the dumpster changes that you might put in would be appropriate as well. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll yield.
I don't have
You don't have
anything
any at
additional
all?
to that.
I was hoping you did, because I was looking for something. So kind of sort of along them same lines, it appears that we're going to have to write that in, though, Mr. Nichols, if that's going to happen based on what Mr. Lansing said, if that's going to be a profit there. My question to Mr. Smitherman, in case somebody was wondering, is that how much could we go to a different zoning, accomplish everything, and not leave it open? Because then he wouldn't be allowed to do it, and we think we would have to re-advertise and start again. So instead of doing that, we may have to work through this as we have. I personally don't see anything wrong with what he is proposing based on what he's saying. There's nothing, I'm gonna get to a question in a second. there's nothing that I have heard him say or alluded to that it will drastically change that place. I think the thing that I would make note of and is that this is already in the commercial zoning. And somebody could come in and do far more, and you couldn't even stop it. I'm speaking to the audience now, if you wanted to, if they picked up on it. Is it possible to have this is where I'm going, is it possible for this information and profits that we're talking about stay just with this owner? So that so when we rezone it, it stays with the owner. So if he was to sell it, transfer it or whatever, it would have to come back before us again, unless he transfers to his wife or his kids or something, somebody that in his immediate family. But can we let it stay just with this owner?
So according to county code and Virginia code, the proffered conditions stay with the land, not the owner. They transcend the owner. That is how Mr. Perks has inherited. He bought this property
That's how he got the problem of having to rezone
with
it.
the current proffers, correct? Being,
So nobody else could buy it and do anything different with it, then could they?
no,
So it doesn't-
they
all
will
the-
have to follow the same proffers that he is proffering now, whether he sells it 3 times or anything like that, until someone comes in with an additional rezoning or wants to add separate conditions or retract separate conditions, they would have to go through a rezoning process all over again, as we are currently doing.
So you know, when you first met me, I told you I was gonna ask you questions that the audience asks, because they can't ask you questions. That's where I'm at. You heard the lady come up and ask that question. I'm making it plain for them that once these proffers hit, they stay there.
Yes, they stay
That's
with
the
the
very
land.
reason he got the proffers that he got, because he bought it, he bought that. You buy the whole kit and caboodle. So when the proffers go, it stays there. Nobody can come buy it and develop it into something else. That was all the concern that I heard. So I was trying to get you to get that out according to
Yes.
code and state.
As well as we have in the past issued violations for previous landowners who have violated their proffered conditions prior. So to try and answer,
Okay, I get you. So we got that covered. I'm finished. You got any questions? Oh, I'm sorry. Go back.
Mr. Chairman, I think that's what I was trying to get to, is he could have he bought this property, he could be holding auctions
All day long.
all day
With
long, 7
restaurants.
days a week, 365 days
That's
a
right.
year. And I was just trying to point out that that's obviously not what he's proposed to remove those and put in some additional proffers. I do think in that line, if he had the additional proffer that said the property will be used as an office and as a warehouse storage for the applicant's business.
But he does.
But it's not as a profit. Is
What's
it
in
a
his
profit?
application? That's what he's applying for. So what's his purposes for this? Office less than 1,000 square feet and warehouse for cookies. That's what he.
Well, I would ask is that technically a proffer or is it?
Well,
Mr. Nickel is correct on this point. There's no proffer, there's no condition in the application that would limit the use of this property to the one that is described in the application. So if we want to limit it to the office use that he has described, we would need to have a 4th proffer in there that says that it will only be used for those.
so what's the
purposes.
purpose of the application you filled out?
The
From a legal
application,
perspective.
it explains why he's wanting to amend the proffers. But unless there's a proffer in there that explicitly says that it is limited to office use or to a particular kind of office use, it's not going to be
Okay, Carol, from
binding
now
on
on, then we need to have that from the county side so that we don't. You understand what I'll assume like this, that if this is written here in the application, then that covered it. But if that's not covering it, then when we do favorable motions or we need to tell our applicants they need to put these, what they actually want in here. Because I can assume, And I know they say never do that, but I can assume he did what everybody else did. I told you right here what you're gonna do, and I told you what I'm gonna do.
Right.
And then I went in here and said how I'm gonna get there, and I would assume it's okay, but now they're saying that's not legally sound.
I think that the issue is because the proffer prior was approved as a specific use as an auction house, et cetera, that sort of ran with the property, which is why he's, like I said, he could be an auctioneer, do all that, but that's not his business. So I don't think the application is wrong. I think it's just the proffers, if they were more clear, to your point, I mean, we're not, this is not something that's for us, you've said it in front of us, then I think that gets us to where we need to be ultimately. And I have drafted, albeit in my scratchy handwriting.
Can you hang on to that till
Yeah.
Mr. Capel goes, because we're gonna have to do that all at one time.
Sure.
So I've got a few things to say, and I want to preface it by saying, Mr. Perks, this is not directed at you, like your business, it seems fine. So I'm going to say some things that I don't want you to think I'm poking at you. Just curious, how many people here live on Village Road right now? Okay, great. So I just want to tell you something. So first of all, ma'am, so the Planning Commission, I just want to address some things that you
Just
said.
answer the question, don't call her out.
No, I got it. Yeah. So the Planning Commission, all we do is recommend. So we don't have any authority other than to recommend. The Board of Supervisors, they make the final decision. So all we're going to do is make recommendations to the board. And the enforcement mechanism is the county, right? So when it comes, if proffers weren't enforced, that's the county administrative body that didn't enforce it. So for those of you who live on Village Road, we have a comprehensive plan, and your area is deemed a village district. Okay, so I live near the Barbersville Village District, and we have an overlay, a zoning overlay. Right now, all you have is the comp plan that says you're a village district and you've got nothing else. So if you want to really work on this long-term, please talk to your board, talk to the board and tell them that you want to start working on an overlay district for your village. This is something I've been harping on for a long time. We have a comprehensive plan that delineates zoning districts, but those zoning districts are not in our zoning ordinance. So while you live in an aspirational village, you're stuck with the zoning that is there. So please, I would support it 1,000,000%. I've been asking for this for as long as I've been up here, is to start working on these zoning ordinance. And through that village overlay, you all can have input and you can start to lay down some bars. You can start to set some standards and say, hey, we're not just going to accept anything, and we're not going to rely on the whim of the board or the planning commission. We're going to get something in the ordinance that we can live with. So I would encourage you to do that, because that's a long-term way to fix this. And look me up, call me. I'll be happy to talk with you about it. So that's that. The other thing I want to say is that this C2 zoning in this village, to me, is completely out of place. I mean, someone can come in and do things that they can build a 100-foot tall building. I mean, do you know that? They can put a sign that's 2 square feet per the length of that barn on an 18-foot pole that's lit. So that's what C2 will allow. Now, through your village overlay district, you can fix that so that those sorts of things aren't allowed. So, I've got the same concerns that the other commissioners have. I think this business sounds perfect to me for the village. I'm sorry, I don't live there, right? But if I lived there, I would say, wow, this is pretty cool. It's a low-key business. It's going to keep the property maintained. He's already agreed to some things. He's talked to some neighbors, and those are all great signs. Those are the sort of, businesses you want. But what I am concerned about is, when it gets sold and some of these other things that aren't addressed through the proffers that this particular applicant doesn't intend to do, but if he sold it, someone else could do. So I totally agree that proffer that you've described, I would recommend, that's what I would recommend to the board, that be in there. There's some signage, I mean, digital signs, I mean, there's all sorts of things. If you all read this C2 ordinance, there's all sorts of things that can be allowed. And so I personally, if I lived in that village district, wouldn't want those there at all. And so now to the county, I'm wondering, you know, the C2 ordinance says that a warehouse is only allowed by special use permit in the C2 district. And so an office is allowed by right, but a warehouse is not allowed by right. So I would have assumed that you would have taken the most intensive, the most restrictive, and that would have been applied, and that what we would really be doing is considering a special use permit under the C2, which I think gives a little more ability to more easily restrict some of these things. So I'm just curious, like, how are we talking about a warehouse by right in the C2 district? So Kira, it was a trick question. I know you're up here defending things from before, but it wasn't really a trick question, but
I think the first question is, well, what's a warehouse? And I'm in the code book right now trying to find out what is our definition of a warehouse. And if there's a square footage determination,
yeah.
which I assume there is.
All I've heard is warehouse.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Um,
We all, apparently we know what it is and we're calling it something. So, and I'm not trying to, again, sir, I'm not trying to throw a wrinkle in this. It's just, there's some things about, there's some things that aren't, they need to be fixed. And it's bigger than just, you know, your thing there. And so, again, I encourage the citizens to lobby your supervisors to get this zoning squared away. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Any follow-up based on what Mr. Capel said? Mr. Nichol, would you compose the proffers that you propose that we should push? And let's see if the applicant is acceptable. We'll have an argument behind it, and that doesn't mean we won't go one way or the other. It's just, I think he needs to have a chance to say nay or yay since we changed something on site.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I took the liberty of proposing what I will call a fourth proffer. So this would add a fourth proffer that states as follows. And Mr. Pritchard, welcome to come up and look at the writing here, scratchy as it is. It says, add a fourth proffer that states as follows, colon, number 4, the properties will be used as an office and storage for the applicant's business, complete care of Virginia. Period. Simple, succinct, to the point, and to, I think, what you said you're going to use the property. It would be in addition to the other 3. And we're happy to want to look at this.
Mr. Nichol, you didn't use the word warehouse.
I
right?
did not use the word
Storage.
warehouse. I used the word storage, which is what I took your intention to be, as a storage for your materials.
Does that meet the legal muster?
Yes, sir.
Then commissioners, I would ask your pleasure on that. And Mr. Nichol, since you have it,
George has
George, yes.
I could not quite hear Mr. Nichols' proposed proffer because of,
Sorry, George.
Say it again.
I will say it again. I think my mic is off.
thank you, Mike.
Yeah, so the proposal is to add a fourth proffer that states as follows, colon, number 4, the property will be used as an office and storage for the applicant's business, comma, complete care of Virginia, period.
Thank you.
Mr. Nickel, I think you actually left. I think it should be 5, unless I'm misunderstanding what we were talking about. Go back and look at the sign on the door. There will only be a sign on the door.
Hold on a
That's
second.
not in the proffers.
Mr. Chairman, just a quick note, before we can accept that proffer that Mr. Nickel has added, we just need to be sure that the landowner agrees with that condition and accepts it voluntarily.
Understand. But I'm just trying to check a point of the signage is up in this 3rd paragraph. It's not down there with the. It's not down there with the proffers.
Okay, hold on a second. So did he not submit the signage?
You did, but it's not the proffers. You don't have to say the whole board. This is what we got told. Otherwise, C3, let's
Do
see.
you want me to put that as a 5th?
Otherwise, he can put a marquee sign.
Yeah,
up
okay.
there.
I'm fine with that. All right.
I mean, he can have it flashing all night if he wants them out.
So just in view of what was said, I'm sorry, I was focused on the whole use issue, so. Okay. Because you actually do state that in your letter, I just wanted to refresh my recollection of that. So I'm going to say the 5th, so add a 4th and 5th proffer that states as follows. 4, as I previously stated, the property will be used as an office and storage for the applicant's business, Complete Care of Virginia. Number 5, the applicant will, I'm going to try to use your words to the best of possible here, will take down the old signs and put one of the business signs on the door of the property. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, one additional note on number 4. I know I had said proffer number 4 passes legal muster. But as Kira just explained a moment ago, proffers run with the land. And Mr. Latchney, our county attorney, has explained that proffers that try to keep them from running the land would be invalid. So the last part of condition number 4 would just need to be removed that says that it's for that business by name.
Okay, that actually is fine. That makes more sense legally to me anyway. So again, so let me,
What we can do is we can name the type of business that it is.
yeah.
Well, just
And we
leave
can
it.
make it specific in that regard.
Yeah.
But if someone else wanted to operate the same type of business, then they have to
Correct.
be able to.
Correct. That, and,
Hey, Mr. Nickel,
yes,
would you be open to adding indoor in front of storage?
I would have no objection to that. So we're kind of we're gonna add the word indoor in front of storage, which I think reflects your intention to have this, any storage indoors and not out. You're not gonna store a bunch of stuff outside.
Not my plan, but that, I mean, I won't be limited to have a carport or something outside now. I'm not able to put any equipment on it.
You can have vehicles, certainly of a parking lot, but it's,
Well, that building has a landing, and if he brought something there till he could get it inside, or somebody dropped something off, it's the only concern I would have. I mean, I'm not advocating storing outside, but the last thing I think I would want to put on him is that UPS drops off some boxes, he hadn't got back to get them, and somebody goes and takes a picture and say, aha, you're storing outside, this has happened 3 times. I mean, let's face it, while it works for him, it could work against him too. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, if somebody would run, and that's not fair to him, because we all have boxes left outside of our business, out our homes and things. And I just don't, And because that does have a landing, when I say a landing,
Yeah.
it's a concrete pad all the way across it. We gotta be fair to businesses too, because FedEx, UPS, whoever comes, I know how we can be as citizens sometimes. We can just be the contrary.
That's obviously wasn't water.
For that purpose.
Yeah,
I
that's
can
not
see
what I
that.
was talking about.
Yeah, you were talking about permanently staying
just-
outside. I get it, but I can. Want to make sure.
I don't know how to fix that.
That's right.
Rely on him
Be
to
honest.
Get along with his neighbors.
Okay. We'll see how this works for all of us. So appreciate your patience. We will add a fourth and fifth proffer that states as follows. Number 4, the property will be used as an office and storage for a water treatment business. Period. 5, the applicant will take down the old signs and place a new sign on the door. Or I could say the entry, whatever, you
On
know,
the door's fine.
on the door. That's what you said, so I just used your words.
I'm okay with that. But like, everything looks,
That's good.
but, what you were saying, I don't know if you know, have to get something out overnight. I mean, even the old property on there was like in the past 30 days, 60 days, they had something on there, but I don't have to think that, you know, a parking trailer there or something, that night, a parking truck there, is gonna go on the next day.
No,
No,
that's
Yeah.
not at all the intent.
no, and that, there's
Not-
no
not at all.
restriction to that, certainly, in what I, and you're happy to look at this language.
Yeah, and then so now, one question I do have in reference to that, if you're saying it's for the office and storage of the company only, how does that affect the parking lot?
How does that,
Affect the parking lot?
What was the question?
restate your question for all the commissioners?
The way the verbiage is written in there, he's got written there, that the building is to be used for office and storage of the water treatment company. However, the whole end of the way is all apartment.
Oh, it's apartment?
Yeah, somebody used to live there. All they used to live there.
Okay, I didn't know that for some reason. I must have missed
It
that.
used to be, they used to live in there. I mean, you know, I think we can leave it like we've got it. We know the intent. If he wants to tear the apartment out, he can. I don't think he can put anybody in there though, based on this. Can he put anybody in there based on this?
Yeah.
Could he have tenants there based on what we have? He could, wow. You don't want that, do you?
I've already got the way there, my father's living in there.
Oh,
There's no way to.
I don't know how we're gonna fix everything.
Fix everything.
I mean, we'll cross as many Ts and dot as many Is as we can, but if your daughter's already there, then it's, because that's not new to it. Anybody tell me it is, I'm gonna tell them they're not, because I've been there. That's not new. Apartments have been there, they live there, the owner lived there, so that's not new. May not be what you like, but that's not new.
I personally am in favor of full transparency, so I would have no objection if we said the property will be used as an office and storage for water treatment business, as well as
Existing
and-
residential,
as well as an apartment.
Even now, we'll not word existing, because it is existing.
And
see Carol wants to get in. Watch yourself there. Workman's comp stopped at 5.
So in the zoning ordinance, it is permitted up to 4 dwelling units attached to any permitted commercial use within C2.
So let's use the word
So-
existing. That way, nobody have to worry about it going up to 4 units.
Which
Is
is
this-
also permitted. I know you guys, I figured you guys would ask about C1, which it is also the same permitted use up to 4 dwelling units.
And
in
I'm
C1.
just gonna say, and existing dwelling unit, are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Boy, this is longer than I thought. I thought this is really working me tonight.
We've
All right,
got- We've
so-
got 300 pages to discuss in the next. one.
That's what I'm talking about. I was thinking this was gonna be my easy one. They gave me 400 pages to do. All right, so commissioners, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna have the proffers. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Would you please stand and come to the podium?
I'll come up here too, that's no problem. By changing the proffers and all, does that change the delay of the timing in any way or shape or form?
No,
or-
that's what we were checking on. No, we're pushing that because it's not a substantial change. If it was a real big substantial change, then we'd have to do it. And because your agreement is with all these, we don't have a problem. There's nothing that we put in here that's not already either in your letter and or in your application and or in your proffers as exist.
That's the only question I have.
Yes, sir.
Great,
And
thank you.
so just, I think there's a slightly better way to word the fifth one. So I just want to read it. I think this is the final. Okay, just work with me here for a second. Add a fourth or fifth proffer that states as follows. 4, the property will be used as an office and storage for water treatment business and contain an existing dwelling unit.
Okay.
Number 5, the applicant will take down the old signs and any new sign will be placed on the door. So it doesn't require you to put one up, but if you have a new sign, it'll go on the door.
Okay.
Does that work?
Yeah, I'm on that. That's great.
Okay.
Do you mean that it may be used as an existing dwelling unit as opposed to shall or must?
Um,
For example, if he stopped
Right.
using it as a existing
And may
dwelling
be
unit,
used as an, yes.
yeah, if his
may
daughter
be
moved out, he wouldn't be in violation.
Used
Right.
as,
It's not.
as dwelling, unit. Yes.
Yeah, so if we just add the word may before contain,
Yes,
Okay,
may be used as, yeah.
Mr. Newman, do
Okay.
you have all that
May
information?
contain.
I believe I do, but I'll appreciate getting Mr. Nichols' notes.
Okay, well, I was going to ask you to, as a secretary, to read it out and the proffers so that I will entertain a motion to accept those proffers either for approval or denial.
You want me?
She'll vote for them, I'm sure.
So you're wanting me to read 4 and 5?
Chairman Brooks.
Yes. Mr. Yancey?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I think we have vetted this pretty good. I would like to call for a motion.
All right, hold on just a second, if you could. She's gonna tell you, the clerk's gonna read the motion out to us, and you can actually make it in just a second. What you need, Ms. Carr?
Yep.
Can you see that, Mr. Yancey?
No, I cannot.
All right, we may just rely on you on a second then. Because whoever makes that motion needs to.
We can
follow.
read the motion and Mr. Yancey could so move if he's interested in making. that
Okay,
motion.
they're gonna read the motion, then you so move, and then we'll see if we have a second.
The planning commission makes a motion to approve rezoning 22-01 and the proffered conditions to the Board of Supervisors. The applicant proposed the following proffers. So the motion would read, proffers being, should we locate a dumpster on the property, we would enclose the dumpster with something that is suitable for the area and aesthetics. 2, should we update the outside security lighting, we would point the lights down as to not be intrusive to the neighbors. 3, keep the area clean of debris, as in household goods, from being stored outside. 4, the property will be used as an office storage for a water treatment company and may contain existing dwelling unit. And 5, the applicant will take down old signs and Any new sign will be placed on the door.
You accept that motion, Mr. Yancey?
I make that motion, Mr.
Is there a
Chairman.
second?
Second.
And Mr. Chair, before we can vote on this, we need to have confirmation from the applicant that he voluntarily agrees to these
We
proffers.
just did that, but he just did that.
Great, thank you.
Second.
Okay, so it's been moved in second. Roll call, please, Secretary.
Mr. Nichol,
Aye.
Ms. Zellmaker,
Aye.
Mr. Yancey,
Aye.
Mr.
Aye.
Brooks,
Aye.
Mr. Capel.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Good luck to you in your venture. Thank you, citizens, for your participation in that one. We're gonna move to the next one.
Mr. Chairman, Kerry Ragland will be presenting this case for the planning department.
Okay. So right now, we're gonna do public hearing, SA 22-01, SUP 2201. We're gonna open with the county, then open for the applicant, and then we'll do the public hearing. Is there? And I get Carrie and Corey all mixed up, so.
You and
I'm gonna
everyone
start calling y'all a
else.
bunch of last names.
We've been working on how to mitigate that, and we haven't come up with any nicknames that work yet.
Okay. You stay there long enough, I'm sure they'll have one. Thank you all. Thank you. Go ahead, go forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, I'm Carrie Ragland, Senior Planner with Orange County. I'm technically
Hold on a
providing,
second. Okay, all right, now let's try again.
is this more appropriate? I may have to lean into the mic for it to be
Yeah, can you
heard.
hear that now?
Better.
Okay, well then, please forgive my posture as I lean into the mic. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm providing two presentations, one for the substantial accord and one for the special use permit 2201 Sweet Spring Solar. So, Mr. Lansing, please correct me. I was going to briefly describe the substantial accord, and then we need to have a public
Hang
hearing.
on a second, hang on a second. We're gonna ask that if you're gonna talk, please leave the room.
Hey, Mr. Perks. Mr.
We're gonna
Perks,
ask if you're gonna talk, please leave the room. You're disturbing the meeting. I'm sorry, that's fine. Thank you so much. Okay, start completely over again.
So, Mr.
Substantial
Chairman,
accord.
thank you. For the record, I'm giving two presentations. One is for the substantial accord, and then the second will be for the special use permit for Sweet Spring Solar. For the substantial accord, this is required for compliance with Virginia Code 15.2-2232 A and H, which require that the general location or approximate location, character, and extent of the proposed solar facilities to be substantially in accord with the adopted comprehensive plan. Orange County Comprehensive Plan does not set forth general or approximate locations for future public utility facilities. Therefore, this review must be made by evaluation of the comprehensive land use guidance. On your screens, you can see I've put in wording from section 70-30323 for the current zoning, which allows for public utility facilities in agricultural zone districts for the generation of electric energy for sale. In addition, the future land use category for the parcel in question is A2, agricultural, which is intended to protect the characteristics of those areas of the county that feature a mix of agricultural, residential, and commercial uses. This concludes the staff presentation. If there is a need for a public hearing, that can happen at this time. And Mr. Chairman, I can step away if there is anyone to speak.
You can keep your position. We don't have to have a public hearing for this substantial accord. do we? It's not listed on the agenda. if we do.
Mr. Chair, 15.2.22.32, the code section that Carrie just cited, says that the Planning Commission may hold a separate public hearing on the substantial accord determination. And at the direction of the Board of Supervisors, it shall. In this case, the Board of Supervisors hasn't explicitly told us that we have to, so that just means it's optional. The benefit of having a separate public hearing is just that it makes sure that we keep our ducks in a row so that we do vote on the substantial accord determination before the planning commission votes to make a recommendation on the underlying SUP itself.
Has anybody signed up for the public hearing for the substantial accord?
Yes, not for the substantial accord. no,
Not
sir.
for the substantial. Is anybody in the audience that want to speak to the substantial accord? The public comment is open. You want to speak to the substantial accord or you want to speak to the solar park? Okay, come up and speak on the substantial accord only. State your name and your address. And we'll open the public comment open. Speak into that microphone, please.
Yeah, my name's Paul Moog. I live at 29199 Quarter Moon Lane in Rhodesville. I'm not, it looks like the substantial accord would require you to change the zone, just the plan. And I guess one of the problems I have is Orange County is, and in the surrounding regions, is becoming a place where they're dumping all this solar energy because the land is relatively cheap. And I think we shouldn't change it because, they could, 5 or 10 years when these solar panels are dying and no longer useful, and when the government subsidies and mandates that are pushing them go away, I suspect these energy companies are just going to abandon them, or they'll try to switch them into like wind turbines, which have a whole other issue of killing wildlife. I mean, none of this is good for the wildlife. So I would ask you not to do this action, and I'd like to speak again on this individual one, but for on this issue, that's what I'm going to say.
Okay, can you do me a favor because you spoke so fast? State your name and your address again.
Paul Moog, Moog, 29199 Quarter Moon Lane, Rhodesville, 22542.
And you will have opportunity to speak at the next
Thank you.
public hearing. Was there anyone else? Public comment closed for substantial accord. Ms. Corey, you come back, take your position. Is there any questions for Ms. Corey based on anything we've heard? I solicit a motion favorable or unfavorable for the substantial accord. Remember, if we go unfavorable, then we are stopped. We're done.
There's George.
George, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept the proposed applicants' proffers as well as the staff recommendations as presented.
We got to back up a little bit. I think you're a little bit in front of us or behind us. So we're at the favorable motion for the substantial accord for Sweet Spring Solar. You one step in front of us. Hang on a second then.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion. Well, are you going to withdraw or did you call him out of
I
order?
called him up.
Okay. Sorry, George, no offense there. So I'm going to make a motion. I move that the planning commission approve the general and approximate location, character, and extent of the Sweet Springs Solar Facility as being substantially in accord with Orange County's adopted comprehensive plan.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
It's been moved and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It passes. All right, now move on into the Sweet Springs Solar Project. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So in front of you, in your agenda packets, you have the full application as well as the additional submittals from the applicant. So I'll be going over this generally as there's a lot to consider. This is a application by Sweet Springs Solar for a special use permit to construct and operate a 1 megawatt solar energy generation facility. The 116-acre parcel is located along the south side of Constitution Highway, Route 20, and the east side of Porter Road, Route 625. The parcel is approximately 2.5 miles east of the town of Orange and approximately 1/2 of a mile southeast from the Orange County Airport. Construction of the solar facility will encompass roughly 19 acres of the 116-acre parcel with 8.5 acres under solar panel. A 6-foot tall chain link fence with barbed wire will be installed around the perimeter, which will be screened by existing vegetation. Generated energy will be delivered to the Dominion power grid. The lifespan of the solar facility is projected to be 30 years. The site plan includes an entrance location off Porter Road near the Orange County landfill. After receiving comments during the application review process, the applicant is now pursuing a new entrance location also along Porter Road, utilizing a natural gas pipeline easement owned and operated by Williams Company. On your screens, the current zoning map, and I will point out I incorrectly labeled the map Sweet Springs plural. It should be Sweet Spring singular, and I made that mistake several times, so I do apologize. In the current zoning map, you can see the parcel outlined in red with the proposed site location also in red. The frontage and northwestern acreage is residential R1. Roughly 90% of the property is zoned agricultural, as well as the proposed site location. The future land use of the parcel in question is under the A2 category. Again, the parcel is outlined in red, as well as the proposed site location. Adjacent parcels are within the A2 category. Airport is within the economic development category, and nearby parcels are within the A1 category. And the A2 land use category was just reviewed in substantial accord. This is a section of the proposed site provided by the applicant. Please note there are about 14.5 acres that will need to be timbered, not explicitly indicated on this map, but I'm with my cursor, I'm showing you the rough area. So the area between the proposed, the areas under panel and the existing buffer will need to be timbered. There is a minimum of 50-foot to 100-foot buffer zone. The map demonstrates 8.5 acres that will be under panel. Also note the proposed entrance location that will traverse the existing easement, as well as the point of interconnection, which is going to be across Porter Road. The site plan also describes areas of potential grading, which will be determined later with site plan approval, as well as stormwater management areas indicated here, as well as up here in the corner. So this is the applicant's site plan overlay on Google Earth, and I've zoomed out just to show the proximity to the Orange County Airport. So roughly from this point of the proposed site location to the airstrip is right about half a mile, just under half a mile. Also note the location to the Orange County landfill, which is just here. And again, the proposed site entrance is about here, where my cursor is showing. I pulled this photo also from the application. This is to show the view shed from Mount Sharon. And you can see the proposed site location here, as well as the Orange County Airport in this area. These are staff photos of the proposed entrance location off Porter Road. Note the existing easement gate, as well as the fiber optic line that runs parallel to Porter Road. The photo on your right shows the easement cutaway, and the proposed entrance location will require timbering in about this area that I'm indicating with my cursor. So in your very dense agenda packets, you have before you the applicant submittals, which includes both his application as well as several other reports for consideration. The applicant has proffered 2 conditions. The first is a payment of $1,400 per megawatt per year to the county. And note this is a 1 megawatt facility, so it would be $1,400 per year. In addition, the traffic to and from Orange County landfill will not be impeded by traffic related to construction or operation of the facility. Staff recommends approval of this special use permit. Staff further recommends that the approval be contingent upon 3 conditions. The first is a approved decommissioning plan, surety bond, an E&S control plan, and the appropriate bonds, as well as that vehicular access be through an approved VDOT entrance, whether that is through the currently proposed easement location or through another entrance on Porter Road. Staff suggests the following additional SUP conditions for consideration. These are based upon ARC comments that the commission may wish to further consider. Again, these are clarifying with the VDOT construction entrance, that there also be a transportation plan for construction, that there is a favorable glare study performed and submitted by a third party, and this is in relation to the airport. Site maintenance plan to include a regular ground maintenance, and that prior to site construction, there be a phase 1 cultural resource survey to be completed, and this is also noted in the application. So, Mr. Chairman, this concludes the staff presentation. Please let me know if you have any questions for me. The applicant would also like to make a presentation.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for staff at this time?
Couple quick questions. So as far as cost to the county, do we think there'll be any costs to the county in relation to this solar facility? Are they adding any students to the schools?
They are not.
They're not.
The only cost that I can think that may come across will be during the decommissioning process. Which again, I recommend this application be contingent on approved decommissioning plan, but the current one provided by the applicant states that materials will be recycled. And it's unclear if that would be using the Orange County landfill or other recycling facilities that are just unforeseeable at this time. In 30 years, it's hard to know what will be available.
No infrastructure requirements, no water.
There's no water required on site.
So all in all, this, from a financial perspective, unlike so many of the housing developments we're looking at, this would be a net positive to the county as far as revenue. Is that what we're thinking?
It would be small, but technically, yes, net positive.
And to the extent we have a net positive, that in theory would mean our taxes would probably not be affected, probably would not be raised because of this project.
Staff does not foresee any tax differentials with neighboring parcels. It would only affect the owner of the parcel.
Okay, thank you.
I don't have a question. You have a question? Thank you. Applicant, if you want to come forward, don't leave. No, I was telling her to don't leave the building. I mean, she can leave.
Peace.
George, you got any questions? Mr. Yank? You have any questions of staff?
I do not, Mr. Chairman. I do not, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I think there's a delay.
Sure, I got everything out here. Well, I will say, I did try to roll up those two requests into the presentation that we had. So most of what I was going to talk about tonight, has been covered.
So state your name and what's your affiliation and from there.
Sorry about that. My name is Brendan Grujeski. I'm a development manager with Hexagon Energy LLC.
You have a card.
Yeah,
Give it to the secretary so she can.
Sure.
I could see her struggling with what you were saying.
All right, well, good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the Planning Commission. My name is again Brendan Grujeski. I'm a development manager with Hexagon Energy LLC. I'm joined here this evening by a few folks, Hexagon's Director of Development, Adam Bencher, who's sitting there in the audience, as well as our landowner partners, Don and Dina. We're really excited to present you guys with the Sweet Spring Solar Project. And again, throughout my presentation tonight, a lot of the topic material has been covered. So we're happy to answer any questions you guys may have, but this is going to be a lot more brief than we were actually anticipating. So hopefully we'll be able to get everyone out quickly. So a little bit about us. Hexagon is a private and independently owned Charlottesville-based renewable energy developer. We are focused on working closely with our partners and localities to provide clean energy access to the greater community. We're first and foremost a Virginia business. Adam and I both drove up here from Charlottesville today, and this is where we're headquartered and where a majority of our employees work. So I think that from a land use case, and I'm gonna start just talking about that, given that this is now in the special use permit section of our application. Why a project of a smaller size has appeared before you on your docket this evening. You may have heard about this if you were on the Planning Commission during the Redfish Solar Project application. But this project is really enabled by a piece of legislation called the Virginia Clean Economy Act that was passed in 2020. And what it does is it sets us as a Commonwealth on a pathway to source 100% of our energy mix from carbon-free sources by the year 2050. In particular, and where Sweet Spring Solar fits, is that it gives annual target goals to utilities like Dominion Energy to claim the power from projects of up to 3 megawatts. We really do think that small scale projects do have their benefits. I've listed a few of them here, and I think that you'll see that, especially with these smaller scale projects, we're really able to site them in an appropriate location and have them be innocuous neighbors and really screen from all sides and really have it be, again, a net positive to the county. So again, this is pertaining a little bit more toward the actual substantially in accord section of the application. I won't belabor the point here. I think that what I would like to talk about here is, the project size. This is a 1 megawatt project. The maximum extent of really everything that we need to fold into the application is about 19 acres. The fence line itself is about 8.5 acres. And it's on a larger 116 acre property owned by Don and Dina back in the audience over there. Again, Carrie had talked about this, and this is our proposed general concept plan. We had adjusted the site access based on VDOT comment to make sure that we have enough site distance. This would be something that would be a condition of our permit. We would need to get this approved by VDOT, and we're trying to show that we're working with the county to make sure that we're being flexible in terms of what is presented to you all this evening and throughout the permitting process. Talking a little bit more about the site again, 8.5 acre fence line. We have the retained vegetation. This project is going to be screened on all sides by the existing forest. Carrie had called this out. This was a map that we had submitted to the county showing the acreage of tree clearing that we would need to have. Again, what we're trying to do is show that, we're trying to think into the future and show this is a forested area. We do need to clear the trees. But, this would be the approximate extent. It's about 14.5 acres. I think you'll see later on, I have an actual percentage of the forested land in Orange County. It is a very, very, very small amount. This is the project location. Again, Carrie had these photos, and I just honestly taken this from our application itself. This is a transcribed photo showing our project and where the panels would theoretically go. Again, we had adjusted the site access from here. So, the site access is a little bit different. This is the view shed from Mount Sharon. And then the extent, again, this is a very small portion of land in Orange County. It is about less than 1/100% of land in Orange County. And this is less than 1/10% of forested land in Orange County as well. I talked about future land use compatibility. This was shown in the substantially accord determination that you all had made. So I'm going to skip through this very quickly. And then I think that this is probably my part that I'm most excited about. Talking a little bit about how we've developed this project and permitted it. On March 29th, I had held out a community meeting at the airport itself and quite literally sat down with the neighbors to try and talk about what they want to see with this specific project. That was preceded by 3 rounds of letters that I had sent out to people in the area, not only adjacent to the property, but also in the general community. I wanted to see what people had to say that may not normally be receiving an official county notice. And I thought we had really good conversation and discussion. And the 2 great things that came from it were the conditions that we would like to propose as we move forward. One of which being a fire management plan to be submitted to Orange County Fire and EMS, and the other to be a vegetation management plan to be submitted to the county. These are 2 things that really do encompass us trying to work with the neighbors and make sure that this is something that is acceptable to them. And then as we present it to you all to say, hey, we try to take into account the community in mind. The vegetation management plan would make sure that the ground cover underneath would be sightly, orderly, well-maintained and well cared after. I do want to stress again, where we stand in the process is that input still matters. To the extent I can, I'm trying to reach out to everybody I can and be able to receive their phone calls and their emails and meet with them out on their properties or what have you. So their input still matters even as we go into the board hearing later on. So in summary, again, this is a small project, 1 megawatt in size, 0 batteries, no batteries, no batteries. It's a short construction period. We're estimating approximately 2 to 3 months. If you look in the very back of your packet, they'll have a quick memorandum talking about what it is to expect during traffic and construction. It's not going to lead to the closure of Porter Road. This was something that I had talked with the landfill folks about, and that was their primary concern. This will not lead to the closure. The electricity will be locally consumed. With a project of this size, the electricity that will go on the grid will be consumed locally. It will not be shipped off onto the transmission network, will not be bought by a third party that, like, an Amazon or a Google. This is going onto Dominion's grid. It's going into people's houses nearby. That's just the way the electricity works. It will create some temporary and permanent construction jobs. I'm going to be totally honest. This is not going to create hundreds and hundreds of jobs and be millions of dollars of investment, but it will create jobs. We are on the leadership council of the SHINE program, which is a local economic development program that sets people up for certification of building of these actual solar projects. And they are in the process right now of finalizing setting up shop at PVCC themselves. And so this would be a direct use case to allow the people that would be graduating from a class to construct a project that's nearby and specifically in Orange County. Again, it does not require additional county resources. It's a net positive, as Mr. Capel had mentioned. And then, if we get all our timelines lined up correctly, we're expecting construction to start in about the summer of 2023. So that's kind of what is Sweet Spring. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Adam had prepared some sort of additional justification questions when you may think about solar projects may pop into your head. He'd be happy to talk more about them. Let him come up.
Thank you.
So my name is Adam Ventry, Director of Development at Hexagon Energy, representing Sweet Spring Solar here tonight. In addition to what Brendan had presented to you, I was hoping I could cover some of the questions that questions and concerns that came up at the community meeting and that we typically hear when presenting on small solar cases. One of the big areas is around safety. So we are within a half mile from the Orange County Airport, and questions of glare are important to answer in order to make sure that this facility won't have any negative impact on that airport. The FAA has a process by which it evaluates solar facilities and potential glare from solar facilities as it relates to specific airports and specific flight paths. So what we do, we run a glare analysis. We provide that to the FAA using their standards, and the FAA makes a determination as to whether or not it will present a hazard for that flight path and for that particular airport. Our engineering team has completed that work. We've submitted it to the FAA. We've received notice of no hazard for the Orange County Airport. I know that I think staff has requested, and some of the folks at the airport have requested that analysis be rerun with a third party instead of our own engineering team and provided to the FAA and to get that same conclusion. So we're working on that right now and have a third party contracted to do that work. Another question is related to detection and response to events that might happen. There is electricity on the site. Anytime you have electricity, you do have a very small chance of creating a fire if there's some sort of short or an arc that can exist from wiring. It's the same as similar to like an electrical fire in a home. The good thing about solar facilities is that they're monitored 24/7 remotely and in an automated way. So we know what the solar facility should be producing at any given moment based on the weather there locally. And there are algorithms that run 24/7 to monitor that and to determine whether or not there's any issues that are happening. Because anytime you're going to have a fault or malfunctioning equipment, a kind of situation that could lead to a fire or something similar, we'll know about that immediately. And it's anytime anything's down, it's lost revenue. So we dispatch teams immediately once those conditions are discovered. And then those teams go out to investigate. And if there is any sort of situation, fire, rescue, and EMS can be dispatched as well. We get a lot of questions about health and safety. We did include that study that's kind of a meta study that NC State had completed, looking at all of the publicly available health and safety data. And I would kind of direct those questions to that document and those conclusions. Under Virginia Code 15.2, 2241, there is a requirement for solar facilities and localities to enter into a written decommission agreement. It also requires that financial insurance of performance of that decommissioning is established. The amount would be based on professional engineering estimates. Additional conditions can help kind of guide how that's structured. But the important thing is that it's in favor of the county, and that Virginia code also allows the county to access the property without prior consent of the owner in order to decommission a solar facility using that financial performance funds that will be available in order to decommission if the project were to fail to do so sometime 20, 30 years in the future. We also get questions about project stability. You probably heard one already tonight. How are these things financed? Would they be abandoned? How does that work? Are there government subsidies? Will they dry up over time? What would happen to the project? One of the things that's available for anyone who purchases solar panels, whether a private individual for your home or a business like Hexagon Energy, is federal investment tax credit. That tax credit is substantial and it's realized at the front of the project. So it gets baked into construction costs. It's not an annual subsidy or an annual funding that comes from the government that we rely on in order to continue to operate this type of project. The other important thing is that solar projects like Sweet Spring and others are the lowest cost energy that you can add to the grid today in Virginia. That's codified in Dominion's integrated resource plan that gets reviewed and approved by the State Corporation Commission, who has authority over that process. The numbers that are up there in front of you are from Dominion's recent integrated resource plan, showing solar as the lowest cost, and in most cases, orders of several levels below nuclear or coal or other types of facilities. The other important thing to note is that there are really low operating costs for these projects. Once you construct them and that capital cost is set up, you operate that project over time to recover that and to make a profit and make a return. There's not a lot of overhead for that. The way these small sort of 3 megawatt and below projects will operate is they'll either be added to the fleet of generating facilities that Dominion operates in order to kind of make up the mix of power that we use every day, or they could enter in directly into what's called a power purchase agreement with Dominion. Power purchase agreements are 20-year contracts with Dominion as the counterparty, where we have the right to sell power for up to 20 years without, the kind of as a guaranteed contract that we're able to use to finance that project. So these are really stable investments. It's not speculative. There's no government subsidies that could dry up. Even if the Virginia Clean Economy Act were to be repealed prior to construction, the State Corporation Commission would have to approve this as in the public interest and appropriate for ratepayers, and that doesn't get withdrawn. That sets up our construction and allows us to build that kind of project. Another question that we get is related to construction sound levels. There is heavy equipment that's out there, and there are pile drivers that are utilized in order to drive piles into the ground. The pile drivers are probably the loudest thing that's out there. They create a sound level of about 105 decibels, which is certainly loud when you're up close to it, but that dissipates over distance. So at 105 decibels, if you go out to Porter Road, the nearest point on Porter Road is about 340 feet away. That drops down to about 54 decibels. Going to the nearest residence, that drops down to 47 decibels. 47 decibels is about background noise. If you're sitting in a relatively quiet room, maybe you can hear HVAC running. But nobody's talking. That's kind of 40, 45 decibels. 47 is just above that. We also get questions about impacts to air quality, water quality, and wildlife. So related to air quality, it's a net positive. So these projects provide pollution-free energy and eliminate the need for us to add additional polluting energy sources, and in some cases can offset some of that as well. So a net benefit to air quality. In terms of water quality, certainly more stringent stormwater and erosion sediment control requirements than properties that are in agriculture or timbered. We sort of enter into a new area of state code that's much more stringent and ensures that the project will not have any change in the quantity or the quality of the water running off of the site. And finally, no known negative impacts to wildlife. It's a relatively small site that'll be fenced. It's about 8 acres. And so wildlife can have the ability to, continue traversing around it. And in some cases, depending on the types of grasses that you're able to plant underneath, they've seen increases in diversity of birds around solar farms that have been constructed. And generally the Audubon Society comes out in favor for additional solar farms explicitly for that reason. Those are sort of the points that some of the points that we had heard in the community discussion and that we frequently hear from the community. So I think Brendan and I are available for questions. The landowner, I think, also would like to make a statement if allowed.
That's fine.
Okay.
You can come up.
Hello. My name's Donald Jennings, 19362 Constitution Highway. Came to Orange County 1999. I had enough money to buy about 10 acres, and this property came up for sale. So I had done some research. So I was really amazed to get this piece of property. Well, I took the land was largely cow pasture. Especially up front, and I kept having to bush hog it, keep the trees down, and then the zoning said that if you turn it into forest, you get a reduction of your taxes. So we turned it into forest land. We set aside the land that was going to be forest, quit bush hogging, plant some trees. Now it's forest, and you see on the pictures, I can show you the area that we've changed from cow pasture to forest. So we've had a net positive increase in the amount of forest acres on that property since 1999 when we moved in. This 10, 15 acres that's going to remove some of the forest. This is old growth forest. It's dying out. The storms push the trees over. There's not that many trees really. It's kind of sparsely old growth forest. So that I don't think that's an issue. I just talked to my neighbors this week and I said, what do you think about this solar project? I've got Chuck on the left side, Orange County Towing. And he said, absolutely, this is fantastic. I can't imagine anybody refusing this proposal. He loves it. He had a softball game tonight or he would come. Talked to my neighbor today, Shiflett, Bruce Shiflett, who grew up in the house I'm living in now. His father owned the house and I bought it from his father. He says, absolutely, I've got no problem. I thought they're going to vote on it, send a petition. I'll sign the petition and agree to the proposal. That's left and right. And down the street, all you've got is the sheriff's department. You've got the animal shelter and you've got the landfill. That's all you've got between Route 20 and the entrance to this project. So the few trucks that are going to come by there, nobody's going to notice. Anyway, so we're all in favor. You might hear from some people from Ruckersville, which is on the opposite side of the county, 15, 20 miles away from where this is going to go in. They may have some objections, but we heard the objections, and I think you're going to be kind of, it's interesting. Anyway, I appreciate the time to.
Thank you, sir. Has anyone signed up for the hearing?
Yes, sir.
All right, we're gonna open the public hearing. We're gonna ask that Paul Moog come up again and make a conversation. Make a comment.
Paul Moog, MOOG, 29199 Quarterman Lane, Roseville. If solar energy is the cheapest cost energy, why did you have to have politicians mandate it to be done? The reason is it isn't the cheapest cost for us. It isn't the cheapest electricity, and they've estimated that the cost to, I guess, taxpayers / utility people paying their utility bills is going to be $700 more a year as a result. So it's not cheap. I mean, the fact is, if it was the cheapest form of energy, you wouldn't have to have government mandates to have it done. We've already seen what the effect of politicians can have on our energy costs. We've seen gas double in price in a matter of months. So let's forget that this is a cheap form of energy. But as a resident of Orange County, I would like to see a moratorium on any more solar projects. I think the two biggest things that the Planning Commission, I'm amazed at how much development is planned in Orange County. I think the county is going to be ruined if this plan, the current plans are going to be done. We have too much traffic on Route 20 as it is. We have too much traffic on Route 3. And right now, as I see it, Route 3 is zoned so that they can put in all the tract housing you want along there. And I think those are going to ruin it. I've grown up in the DC, Virginia area my whole life, and stationed Norfolk. I've been back and forth across Virginia for years. And I've seen how we've gone from beautiful rural counties turned into suburban tract house ghettos, basically. Oh, in a space of 10 years. Look at Central Park in Fredericksburg. That was not there 20 years ago. That was not there at all. And now it's basically jammed up traffic. So I think we need to have a moratorium on solar projects. I don't think this is a zero cost benefit. I think this is basically driven by government mandates. And from my understanding, the solar panels basically just degrade into not 30 years, more like 20 years. And at that point, they have to be replaced. And they're really not very practical in any case. And I'm also concerned about the fact they could be replaced with other things that are more intrusive. But they are harmful to wildlife. That big project on 20, right after they started work on it, 2 bear cubs were run over on 20. I hunt on the back of my 40-acre property off Grassy Gold Mine, probably about 2 miles, 3 miles away from that project. And I know this last deer season, I saw a lot less deer. So I am concerned on the fact that, there aren't going to be any animals living in the area where these solar panels are. That's going to just be trimmed. I understand it seems like a very nice couple who's trying to do this development, and they say they're going to use environmentally friendly plans to keep the grass trimmed, and I believe them. But there isn't going to be any wildlife in that area where the solar panels are. When I think these big projects, they're coming to Orange because we have cheap agricultural land, at least relatively cheap land. And I don't think we should put any more of these projects. I think we need to keep Orange on a slow growth, aim it at agricultural and homestead type people who want to come and live in a country environment. No more tract houses, no more solar farms. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Has anyone else signed up? Does anyone else want to speak to this issue that did not sign up? Come up and state your name, please, and the address and affiliation if you have any.
My name is David Dawson. I live at 23603 Monrovia Road in Orange, Virginia. My concern with solar panels is they leach into the ground and they destroy the ground around them. They can never be reused again for agricultural purposes. There's also a creek running through that property that feeds the lake. That's an environmental impact. How are they going to control leaching? They didn't say that, did they? How are they going to control runoff? And these solar panels cannot be recycled. So when their life expectancy is over, they're going to be put in our landfill. Once again, leaching into the ground. That's all I have to say. And I would really like it if you don't approve this.
Is there any others? Okay. Public comments closed. Commissioners? Have any questions for the county or the applicant?
I have a couple questions for the applicant.
Okay,
I have a comment, first of all. I do appreciate the effort you put into this. I mean, it's kind of, a lot of the things that I would have asked for are in here already. So thanks for that. We have much more consequential projects that have way less information. So I do appreciate you submitting this. Would you mind coming up? There are a couple comments here, so I'm curious about the leaching. Can you address, do these panels leach chemicals into the ground?
Yeah, thank you.
Can you
for the
speak
question.
really loud? into the
Yeah, thank you.
microphone?
Thank you for the question, and the opportunity to answer that. The short answer is no. It's the same photovoltaic technology that we've had for 50, 60 years. I have solar panels of the same design and make on my roof. There's no leaching of chemicals in my yard. We put them on hospitals, schools, libraries, public places, because we know that they are safe. If you want to get really into the more technical weeds, there's a process, a federal process for determining whether or not waste is hazardous waste or non-hazardous waste. It's run by EPA's, it's RCRA. I just always call it RCRA. Always forget the acronym. And they require a test. It's called the Toxicity Characteristic Leaching Protocol, known as TCLP. It's a process by which they grind up solar panels and soak them in acid and tumble them around and try to see what they can do under the most extreme condition to try to pull chemicals out. So we're not talking about rainwater. We're talking about a serious mechanical and chemical process. And solar panels manufactured and installed on solar farms pass that TCLP test, that's non-hazardous waste. There's simply just no evidence for solar panels, whether whole or even whether broken. There's no evidence for those leaching chemicals into the ground.
So you're saying they grind up the panels
In
and
order-
soak them in acid to determine whether they'll leach chemicals?
They do that in order to determine whether or not they can put it in a landfill as non-hazardous waste.
That's a pretty severe test. As far as recycling, can these panels be recycled?
They can be recycled. Like most environmental things, Europe is ahead of us, and they're putting a requirement in that all panels that get installed go to recycling. So there's an industry that's now being established in Europe. In the US, there's only one or two companies that are setting up to do that work, because right now, the panels will last for 20, 30 years. Manufacturers will warranty them for 20 years. They'll replace one if it stops working within the first 20 years. So we don't have a lot of solar panels that are coming offline in a sufficient quantity to support that kind of an industry. A lot of what's happening right now is that solar panels that are going out of service in the US and being replaced with maybe a higher wattage, more efficient per area. Those panels are actually entering into a secondary market because they're still useful after 20, 30 years. The degradation rate is 0.5% per year for PV modules. So when you look at 20 years, it's still 80, 90% of what the original installed capacity was. And so there's an entire secondary market of people really excited to buy use solar panels.
What 0.5% degradation
Per year.
per year? Okay, I've heard 5. So that's obviously not accurate.
No.
Okay. Last question, I promise. Except I just forgot it because I'm getting old. It was, shoot, I'll come back to it. I don't want to delay. That's all I have for now. Thank you. I don't have the question.
If one of the people who came up and spoke were concerned about wildlife impacts, can you speak to that?
Yeah, certainly we're changing the land use. So right now it's sort of unmanaged forest that grows freely. That timber, that wood and timber will be clear cut. And as we finish construction, we'll put grass down. And so you will have 8 acres that will be fenced in that previously hadn't been fenced in. So it wouldn't be fair to say that there's absolutely no impact. I mean, it is a very small amount of area that's being converted in land use from forest to basically a grass field, essentially. The solar panels within that area only cover about 1/3. So you have an 8-acre kind of fence line, and only 1/3 of that, maybe 2 or 3 acres will actually be under the panel. So you kind of have a grass situation going there. But it's not big enough to kind of change. It's not a big enough project to kind of change behavior and patterns for wildlife. They'll forage, and if they don't find what they want within that area, they're going to keep moving down the road.
Thank you.
Mr. Nichol?
Well, I appreciate you doing the glare study. I know that's a big issue, and it's something that will come up from an airport. But if you've flown anywhere recently, there are major international airports that have major solar arrays around them. So I wasn't really all that concerned about that. I thought we sort of overdid it by having a third party. The FAA says it's good. In my view, it's good. That's their business. But I do appreciate you wanting to do that. I thought that showed a willingness to go the extra step on this. Appreciate your meeting with the public as well, because I know, you don't know what you're going to come up with, and this is a forested area. So the fire and, what we've heard about fires, and you have electricity, you never know what can happen. So I appreciate you putting that together as well. I think that was something that was added toward the end of the process. And again, I think that shows some movement in terms of protecting the public safety in this way. This is not a monster project, if I could use that word. I think it's appropriately cited for this particular place and this property. I think we may run into some issues with much larger projects. This is the first one that I've come into contact with in the commission. So I just wanted to thank you for some of the extra steps that you've taken here, which I think have improved the project, and your willingness to do that, I think says a lot to me as a commission member. So thank you for that.
Mr. Yancey?
I have no questions.
Okay. Go ahead. Continue.
Yes, I would also like to express my appreciation to the representatives of Hexagon. I've met with Brendan on 2 occasions, and he's been always forthright and attentive to detail. And as most of you on the commission know, I'm not a great fan of solar, but in this particular case, this project to me is more beneficial to the county than the other 2 prior projects that we have had developed in the county, the Redfish and also the Madison Solar. So I commend them in their application, the quality of the content, as Mr. Capel indicated, and I appreciate their effort to present a conclusive and a compound information data report.
Thank you. What's your life expectancy of this project? I mean, how long do you think this project will stay? I hear the industry is 20 years and maybe more, but what do you think for this project?
Yeah, I mean, Dominion's confident enough in projects like this that they'll enter into a 20-year power purchase agreement. So that's pretty standard. Corporations, when a larger project will contract with Amazon, it's usually
after 20 years, what happens to the land?
20 years. You'll look for a new contract because you'll still have solar panels producing 80, 90% of the original power, and you could either try to re-up with that buyer, or yeah, continue it in some way. I mean, I think our best guess is 30 to 35
So
years.
you actually purchasing the land to put the solar on it, or you leasing the land?
Leasing.
You're leasing the land.
Yeah.
So in 20 years, the land reverts back to the owner, and your decommissioning covers him so he doesn't have to be stuck with the decommissioning.
Yeah, duly, both privately between us and also between you guys and us as the applicant.
Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
if I could ask a question about the decommissioning. I do have concern about the proffer as stated that, sorry, I changed my screen, is that an approved decommissioning plan as well as a surety bond would be submitted. You know, approved by who? And what is our standard for
I was going
decommissioning?
there. I was
Yeah.
going there. I think
And
one
it-
of the problems we got is I don't know that we've got anything in place that covers the decommissioning, not that at this point, it's not a big issue, but is that proffer going to state that it's going to be satisfactory to the county?
That would be
So
acceptable.
one of the common ways that decommissioning is computed is by computing the salvage value of panels in the decommissioning cost. It is a more conservative practice to have the full decommissioning cost bonded without the subtraction of the salvage value. Would that be something that the applicant would be willing to do?
Yeah, that would be acceptable.
Another part of decommissioning is returning the land back to its original state, which generally requires removal of the top 30 or 36 inches of soil to ensure all the conduit and all those things are gone. Is that part of your decommissioning plan?
We haven't, I don't know that we've submitted the plan yet.
No.
Yeah, we've not seen it. I
Yeah.
just
no,
didn't
no,
know if your practice was to
So
go, to
this,
state that depth.
At this stage, do we have to have that plan in place?
Well, it needs to be in place before we sign a permit to construct.
Correct. Yeah, no. In other words, what I think we're offering is that as a condition of our permit approval and prior to site plan approval, prior to anything getting built, we need to make sure that this detail is actually ironed out.
My recommendation to the commission would be that the decommissioning plan include the full bonded amount of the decommissioning cost without subtraction of salvage value. I would also suggest that you specify that the land, the impacted land is returned to its original state. And sometimes that means taking topsoil and stockpiling it for 30 years and bringing it back. Stockpiling on site, a pile of topsoil or otherwise. But I know for particularly in larger installations where the use is taken out of agricultural use, that one of the big interests is ensuring that the land is repaired.
Well, right now, I mean, I don't disagree in principle with that, but it's forest. So
Agreed.
So are we gonna,
So I don't know, other than planting trees, I don't know how we put forestry back.
right?
And
But it's-
that could be a condition.
But it's also zoned agricultural, so I know it could be, I'm not, I mean,
So what I'm actually doing, Mr. Swiftman, which you might make it easier, since you seem to be very schooled in it. Write what you want us to have for that proffer, and then we'll see what we accept.
Sure.
And what that would do is that would then cover your basis, then cover our basis. We can see where we are.
I think
You two on the ends are our scholars of the day.
I think the more important thing is ensuring that the full value of decommissioning is in place.
However you
Yeah.
think it should be, we will rely on your
that,
expertise.
that to me, I think is the central issue
So,
for
yes.
all solar projects, and I absolutely support that. And I recognizing some of the things you've already done, which are, sort of get to a yes on this, make a lot of sense here, because it is, we have a responsibility to look out for the county today and tomorrow and 30 years from today.
I have another question. So I'm in total agreement with you, Mr. Nickel, and you, Mr. Smitherman. So you would propose some additional proffers, fire management plan, So I mean, we need to capture all that. And then there were some additional proffers recommended by staff. Did you see those and do you concur with those?
Yes.
Okay. So we need to like get our arms around all that, depending on what we're gonna do. I mean, if we are gonna make a motion.
And then this is a little bit sidebar here, but are we working on a template for solar farms and things and we've got to get some kind of help?
Yes, sir. I understand that. Absolutely. I've had this conversation several different times with several different layers of the organization, and the Board of Supervisors' general policy is we'll take it as it comes, is my understanding.
Yeah, I kind of want to force feed them a little bit. though, because I think it's okay.
I mean, we could go a long way down that road.
Yeah, well, I mean, I just think in some ways we may believe in some issue here. So let me say this. I said to one of the other commissioners, I see a lot of proposals over the last 10 or 12 years I've been up here. Y'all put one of the better projects together. Y'all check just about every box I could find. And I'm not necessarily a proponent of solar energy or not, but you check the boxes well. And I'll make this comment in open. You know, it's probably placed in the best place in the county. I hear that I don't wants and I don't likes, but it's near a landfill. I mean, let's be honest, ain't but so much somebody wants to do near a landfill. And so it's good use of it. If Orange has a minor industrial area, you go in there too. You right to the landfill, you right into the public safety building where we are. I mean, it's just right across the road here pretty much. And it's near the airport. So if you take the scope and look at what you're doing, it's probably placed as well as anything needs to be placed. And then when you look at the size, it probably fits the size. But I will say this, and I'm not trying to prejudge it anywhere I'll go. I hear the people are saying we got too much solar going on in the county. It's gonna put us about 500 acres of solar property in the county if this gets approved. And I hear what you're saying. There are a lot of solar going on. Our schools have it, houses have it. There's a lot of things that's just going on solar. And so anything that's new scares us. I was thinking today while I was looking at this, I remember my grandfather was 86 years old and my wife and I were trying to help take care of him and feed him. And we bought a microwave and he said, I'm not going to eat anything that come out of that thing. And he just refused. But what he did not know is that when he was not paying attention, a lot of things came out of there. And I say that in humorous activities that I think one of the things that happens when things are newer to us and we see more of them, they make us anxious. So therefore, we have to have questions and concerns and those things come in here for us to vet them out pretty good. And so I will commend you on how you have presented this, but I also would say that for the counties, we need some help with getting some templates and things in place for what we want to do with these and where we want to. But for this project, I don't know a better project that's been presented for solar energy in this county other than this one. It's just small. I'm not trying to put you above everybody else, but it's located right. So,
Mr. Chairman.
yes, sir. You remembered your question?
No, well, it's Julie actually asked it, but if you remember, one of the reasons that we wanted to be a little careful about templates one thing, but we didn't want to make it so that there was a by right path for solar, that there would always be some sort of consideration of where it is and you know, so that was part of the hesitation, was we didn't want to create an ordinance that just allowed them by right.
Yeah, I just kind
But
of.
I think templates, we could probably have some sort of
Some
template.
kind of templates that help even the citizens to understand where we're going to help the other side of it. Ladies and gentlemen, we have before us this Sweet Spring Solar Project. What do we want to do? Mr. Yancey.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Planning Commission recommend to approve the application for SUP 2201 1, Sweet Spring Solar, and its proffered conditions to the Orange County Board of Supervisors.
Okay, but don't we have a proffer we're adding?
Yeah, can I amend a motion? Am I, Eric, Robert's rules?
Mr. Chairman, yes. Yeah, a motion can be amended before it's voted on.
There's no
and-
second, so he could actually suggest the amendment to George.
Right.
Sure, or the amendment to the motion would be a secondary motion. So first you have to vote on the amendment to the motion, and then you have to vote on the motion itself as
But
amended.
since there's no second, he can actually accept it as his motion. George could,
That,
sure.
he could, but it has nothing, it's not related to the second.
Hey,
Yeah,
Hey, Mr. Yancey. There were a number of other proffers that the applicant agreed to. If it's easier for you, I'd be happy to read them and
Thank you.
amend your motion.
Yes, and also the recommendations of the staff as well.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
And I've authored that, and actually it's not an additional proffer, it's an amendment to proffer number 1,
Okay.
which I've typed out as approved decommissioning plan and surety bond in the full amount specified by a professional engineer without discounts for salvage value.
Okay, did you hear that, George?
Is that agreeable?
Wait, read the last
Applicant
part.
accepts that.
Without discounts for salvage value
By PE.
by a professional engineer without this comma, without discounts for salvage value.
Mr. Chairman.
if I
so-
can raise a question, who would choose the engineer?
I don't, well,
Would that be the county selection?
Well, let's
or
just
the-
say third-party engineer.
yeah, third party, if they put their stamp on it, it's goodbye.
Third-party engineer, doesn't matter who picks them.
Well, you said professional engineer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
in
third-party
capital,
professional engineer.
a PE, a civil.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they don't get into what they got into before, where they did their own work and somebody complained.
And what about the return to the present state, returning the land?
Isn't that in decommissioning is not gonna be,
If that is something that the commission is interested in, we could add that to this proffer. That's up
that
to the
doesn't bother
commission.
me as much.
Is that, well, are you applicants? Is that, okay. So I'm going to say, so approved decommission plan as well as as a surety bond will be in the full amount as specified by PE without discounts for salvage and will include.
And will return.
And will include the return of the land to
To
its
its
present
original
state, to its
state, yeah.
original state.
Yeah.
Did you put third party?
I did now.
Now or you did not?
I did now.
Oh, okay.
And will with provision to return to its.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to go into edit mode for this PowerPoint
Oh,
so
look at
that
you.
when you need to approve, we can just read from the list if that's appropriate.
Yeah, I wish I could.
Not
edit.
in there yet?
Did you write down your, see what I typed?
Can you correct me from after surety
Okay.
bond?
Yeah, that's a great idea. Go for it.
Yes.
In the
Well,
full
you're a senior
amount
planner.
as specified by a professional engineer, capital, comma, without discounts for salvage value. You can put third party in front of it. Professional engineer, third party professional engineer, or independent professional engineer. How about that? Because it'd be someone not working for them.
Engineer as specified?
Um,
No. What's after engineer?
That's fine, and then,
comma, without discounts for salvage value. And then Mr. Capel had,
And let's see. Approved, okay, without, okay. Well, I don't know how to word it, but we want the decommissioning plan to include a provision that says they'll return the land to its original state.
you can put period, the plan will require, yeah, there you go. Return of the land to its original condition or state.
Yeah, conditions, it's fine.
It's close. Is that adequate?
yes. And I like the way you put that's close to, because I think you try to see if you get it back, you never get it back to where it was. But you can certainly get with the.
Are we still getting north-south from you guys? Okay. All right. Make sure you're agreeing to them. You know.
And Mr. Yancey, can you see that on your screen?
No, I
She
cannot.
typed in.
I cannot see that.
Well, I'll read it, Mr. Chairman
So-
Brooks. When we get there, I'll read the whole thing and then we'll vote on it. As an amendment, I'll read all these things as an amendment to Mr.
Okay.
Yancey's motion.
That'll work.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, can I raise
Yes.
another question? I have a little concern about some ambiguity arising later in the way this is stated. The decommissioning, well, the surety bond would be from a third-party professional engineer, but the approved decommissioning plan, would that be the zoning administrator or the engineer? Who would
The
approve
plan
that?
would also be by the engineer.
Okay,
Both of them will be by the engineer.
Yes.
okay,
So then it reads proper then, right?
it does. If it were the zoning administrator, I would want that to be clearly stated.
You Probably
All right, George,
actually,
he's gonna read the motion, and if you just say so moved, I think we'll be in good shape. What do you have?
well, yeah,
Mr. Chairman, I wanted to point out that the applicant had additional proffers
Yep.
this
Correct.
evening,
Yep.
You
including
don't have those in
the
here?
fire hazard mitigation plan.
All right, well, go ahead and put those in then.
it's the fire management plan, right? And
Is
what
that
was,
the appropriate?
In the vegetation management. yeah.
Emergency response plan.
Fire.
Andrew, is that your name? Was it Andrew?
Submit.
Adam, could you just hand that
Submit
slide
fire
to
emergency response.
Ms. Ragland? Let her, that'll make it a lot easier.
Perfect. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to point out that this is in addition to the already proffered conditions from the applicant. And then these are the staff recommendations as amended from this evening. So I believe that, Mr. Lansing, do they both
Can
need
he
to be
come up
read
and look
into
at what
record?
you got and just kind of nod and say, yes, this is what we want, so we know that we got it.
This is copied and pasted from your application.
Right.
Details tonight.
Yep. Yeah, and the vegetation management plan was already covered by Carrie's proposal to have
Okay.
the site maintenance plan. It's just different
Okay.
wordage, but accomplishes the same
As long
thing.
as you're happy, we're happy.
Yep, that looks great. Accept.
Okay, Mr. Yancey, Mr. Capel's gonna read the motion. You just say so moved, and we'll see if we can get a second.
Well, I'm gonna read an amendment. You have to put that screen back up, Carrie.
I'm gonna, well, but
Ms. Ragland, how am I gonna read it?
I can jump around if
Well,
you would like
there's-
to begin with the motion, and then if you need to.
Well, I'm gonna amend Mr. Yancey. So Mr. Yancey's
Understood.
already made a motion to approve as presented. And now I'm gonna make a motion to amend Mr. Yancey's motion.
Okay.
Is that right, Eric?
That's right.
And then we have to vote on,
Withdraw.
okay,
Yeah,
got
let's
it.
just- yeah, just so
Okay,
that
got
makes
it.
sense.
All right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make a motion to amend Mr. Yancey's motion by adding the following proffers. That there is an approved decommissioning plan as well as a surety bond, and the full amount is specified by a third-party professional engineer without discounts for salvage value. The plan will require the land to be returned to as close to the original condition as possible. The second is that an erosion and sediment control plan, as well as the appropriate bonds. That's a little redundant, but that's fine. That vehicular access be through an approved VDOT entrance. That the applicant submit a fire emergency response plan and a vegetation management plan. That the applicant have an approved VDOT construction entrance and transportation plan. That they have a favorable glare study performed and submitted by an approved third party. That they have a site maintenance plan to include regular ground maintenance. And that prior to site construction, a phase 1 cultural resource survey / archaeological assessment be completed. and that any recommended mitigation be approved by VDHR. Do you agree with that, Mr. Yancey?
I approve that as presented and read by Mr. Capel.
Is there a second?
Second.
I don't think I can second.
Who was it?
Which, neither one said anything, they both spoke at the same time. Who's gonna second?
We wrote down nickel.
I wrote it
You're
down.
gonna nickel.
It's over.
Okay.
My last name.
All in
That's right.
favor?
We couldn't spell.
Should we do a roll call?
I am, all in favor, vote aye, but we're gonna ask for a roll call, please.
Mr. Yancey,
Aye.
Mr. Capel,
If Mr. Yancey votes aye on this, Mr. Capel surely is too. Aye.
Mr. Brooks,
Aye. It's getting late.
Ms. Zellmaker,
Aye.
Mr. Nichol.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
All right, motion carried 5-0. Thank you so much. Thank you, staff, and thank you applicant, and thank you citizens who partake. Mr. Johnson is, we have got rid of 6. Any new business? None. Any old business? None. Mr. Johnson's gone. Mr. Smithman, do you have anything for us?
Just a few brief words to give you an update on things going on in our department. Our plat review backlog is basically exhausted. We're back up to speed on everything. I can't think of a single plat that's in queue waiting for us. There may be waiting for VDOT or VDH or something else, but
Good.
our new processes and our new staff have gotten that relieved. Our
Before you go too far, I did have a question for you that may apply now. Leland. We had talked about a calendar that when the applicant made presented it, then we would know when it would hit to us and when we thought we'd go to planning. Is that something you like? Just so we can keep an idea what's going on? In other words, it will take, I'm just using the time, 22 days to get through the process. And the application is received, we get a list that it's received. Now,
I see.
Now it's going toward to public hearing, or you're waiting on ABC and or whatever. We had agreed to do that, and I was just wondering if we could still do that with the new staff. What do they thought about that process?
Is that the same as our meeting? It's a deadline calendar. It was never developed to go into 2022.
Mr. Chairman, we'd be happy to look into that.
Okay.
And maybe the most appropriate way to communicate that is in our monthly correspondence.
Absolutely, and I was thinking that we could know what's going on.
Sure.
Sometime what's in the hopper and what's not.
Be happy to.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, it was also Mr. Smitherman for the public, partly, so they would know if you submit by this date, like this is the day that you can expect to have the public hearing if you submit your materials by this date.
Right.
It was partly to avoid meddling,
And blaming.
meddling and blaming and.
Okay. Well, I know that Tracy knows exactly what you're talking about,
Right.
and we will confer and take care of that. No
Yeah, we
problem.
just want to make sure that there's established process.
Sure. Understood. Speaking of processes, we are in the midst of changing a lot of processes because we are working to live into this new virtual environment, which will change every interaction with our department, with our citizens, with external agencies. The Board of Supervisors authorized the purchase of a significant case management system, for lack of a better word, or ERP, called InterGov. We are all working on it weekly, some of us daily, but there will be changes in a lot of what we do. Most of it will be internal process changes, but what our public sees when they interact with us will be a much different environment. There will not be a lot of this, if any. Speaking of that, I think we got a couple trees on the table
You
tonight.
gotta tell me, buddy.
One of the things that we are working on, and we are working with the administrative staff in the administrator's office, is to move your agenda into the same electronic format as the Board of Supervisors. That means we will not be producing 500 pages at a time anymore. We can on a case-by-case basis give you things that you feel like you need to touch. But this system will put us into a virtual environment for our agendas. We'll tell you more about that in our monthly memo later in the month to see if that will go live in May. But just wanted to make you aware that we are not only with our citizens, but even with our board, we are moving to a much more digital environment going forward. And if you've been in our department and you've seen our paper files, it's not a minute too late to get started. I'm surprised the building can hold all our paper. And I mean, from a weight perspective, not a volume perspective. And then the final thing I will say is that we are working very closely with a pending application for the major Highway 3 mixed-use development. We are meeting with the applicant on a very regular basis, every Thursday or so, and are responding very formally and helping usher them to a complete submittal. And I'm happy to talk to any of you in depth about that on a one-on-one basis or two-on-one basis. But just know that it is consuming a lot of our time, and we're being very deliberate. And we are making sure that when it gets to you, that we have thoroughly vetted the application, and we have worked with them to provide a complete application so that your deliberations are thorough and efficient. And you have all the information that we anticipate you'll be asking. And I think that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions for Mr. Smith?
That Route 3, that's not another one.
No,
That's the one
Wilderness
we've been
Crossing.
working on.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Just check.
Just,
Not enough.
No, just check.
that's 757. Yes, Mr. Yancey.
One question for Mr. Smitherman.
Yes, sir.
About 5 years ago, before your time, I specifically requested that the consideration be given by the Board of Supervisors of providing desktop or laptop PCs like our brother in Louisa County have had for the last 8 years to do exactly what you said, stop killing trees. So I hope you've got that on the agenda to make that approach.
Yes, sir. We've already discussed the resources necessary to make this a smooth transition.
Thank you.
All right. Is there any other questions, Mr. Smith? I will comment, thank the staff for your presentations. Again, well performed tonight. I like how y'all condensed them. Once you give us this tree, we don't need to see it, hear it again, because we're obligated to read it, so I like that. And we do thank you all of you all for what you do for the county.
Thanks.
I know sometimes it doesn't. Mr. Attorney, I'm gonna have to get you a little higher seat because I can't see you over there sometimes, so you just gonna have to speak up a little bit. I'll be trying to figure out what's Eric saying. I could used to look at the expression on your face to decide whether I was doing okay or not. Now I can't see your face. Commissioner comments, Mr. Capel.
Great job to the staff, Ms. Davis. If I made you a little nervous, I apologize for that. It wasn't my intent. But I'm noticing just things seem more organized. There's information in there that we didn't used to get, and we really appreciate it. It makes it a lot easier to review things, particularly when we have a lot to review in a short amount of time. So thank you for all your work, both of you, and Mr. Bittner, and Mr. Smitherman, and Tracy, and Eric.
All of y'all.
That's all of us.
All y'all, or as they say in Pennsylvania, all yins. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Sorry.
Zell Maker.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for presenting the information. I also thought it was well organized and helpful for us to be up here. And thank you for moving to get things more electronic and less paper. I think that's a really good move.
No further comments.
Solicit a motion to adjourn. I have no comments either.
Mr. Yancey.
Oh, Mr. Yancey, I'm sorry.
Yes, I also would like to thank the staff for its effort in allowing me to participate off-site. I apologize to you all for not being in attendance in person, but unfortunately, I have an all-day meeting tomorrow that I could not make in time without the utilization of this technology. Thank you very much, and God bless.
Are you sure you were in Virginia somewhere? That's a pretty sunful scene you got behind you.
That's where I'll be all day tomorrow.
Oh, okay. You got some preparatory pictures going on there. All right, folks, we meet again May the 5th. All right, solicit a motion to adjourn.
Move adjournment. Second.
So, all right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, stay here. Motion carries.